Welcome to the Talking Sports with Manny YouTube channel. Man, week one was a wild week. And how about that game last night? The Jets winning overtime. We're going to talk about waiver wire ads. We're going to talk about the entire landscape of week one. We're going to dissect every single game, give in-depth analysis, and more after this intro. Let's get it. So welcome to the Talking Sports with Manny YouTube channel. Welcome to the Talking Sports with Manny podcast. NFL week one was crazy. NFL week one was wild. Let's go ahead and start with what we know. Aaron Rodgers suffered an Achilles injury, and this Achilles injury is going to knock him out practically for the entire year. And this could be the last time we have seen Aaron Rodgers on a football field. Why? For one, he came to the Jets to pursue a Super Bowl. They built this team to be a win now. Dalvin Cook coming on, Garrett Wilson, Lazard, Randall Cobb. He brought in all of his boys. But knowing Aaron Rodgers, he might come back next year just because Aaron Rodgers never really goes out without a bang, right? He doesn't want that to be his last long impression, which is, coming out and then getting hurt. So Rodgers could be back, but for me, I would advise that Rodgers should retire. So the game went back and forth. Aaron Rodgers plays 4 plays, and then he's knocked out of the game, can't return. Then the Jets are going back to Zach Wilson, and everybody's like, oh, my gosh, Zach Wilson, this guy is terrible. I can't stand Zach Wilson, this and that, right? So Zach Wilson comes in. He plays okay. He gave them just enough to be able to win, and he almost blew the game as well with that crazy interception that he was able to throw. But he got that lucky touchdown to my guy, Garrett Wilson. And I'm so sad because in fantasy football, I would have loved to see Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers pair up, but we're not going to get to see that, which is very, very sad. But the Jets did win the game. They forced overtime. Well, the Buffalo Bills forced overtime. I was sleepy, but I was staying up for this game. And next thing you know, they get the punt return, and the guy runs it back for a touchdown. I'm going crazy. I'm going bananas. I cannot believe what I'm seeing out of my own 2 eyes. The Jets defeat the Buffalo Bills. Not only that, Josh Allen committed 4 turnovers. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 turnovers. 3 INTs and 1 fumble. It was crazy, man. I've never seen Josh Allen play this poorly. But at the same time, I told you guys, the Jets have an elite defense. And that elite defense should carry them towards trying to pursue the playoffs. Even with Zach Wilson, they're going to try to pursue the playoffs. You got guys out there like Carson Wentz. I'm seeing rumors about Tom Brady coming back to football. Tom Brady on the Jets with this Jets team is a Super Bowl contender. So I don't see that as too far-fetched. Do not be surprised if Tom Brady comes back. If he comes back, what better scenario than to come play for the Jets? Who knows? Let's say if they win a Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers gets another ring. But that's just either here nor there. Jets win, big win in overtime. Special teams and defense was elite. If they can get anything, just an average performance out of that QB position, this Jets team can be dangerous. Now, with the Bills, what's going on? Is it the running game? Is it that James Cook isn't doing enough? Is it that Josh Allen is not as elite as we thought? Or is it that they need a number 2 receiver, or they need a number 2 option? Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis, one of these 3 guys need to emerge to come out and become what Josh Allen needs on the opposite end to take away pressure from Stephon Diggs. So that's it with that game. Let's go back to the Thursday night game. Lions and Chiefs, right? We talked about it a little bit earlier in other episodes and other streams. Jared Goff did just enough, 253 yards and a score. Gibbs, we got to see Gibbs for the first time, but it was David Montgomery who had that game-winning touchdown. He had 21 carries for 74 yards and a score. Guys like Josh Reynolds stepped up. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a good game. Patrick Mahomes did not look so great with a receiving core that was so poor. So we do now understand that, hey, these special QBs, these elite type QBs, these franchise crazy good QBs, they also need weapons as well. So if they need weapons, let alone guys that are not good need even more weapons, right? So that's that. We already talked about that game so much. Lions start out 1-0. Jets start out 1-0. This is a crazy week one, and it gets even crazier. The number one team with the number one draft pick, I would say, was the Panthers. They faced the Atlanta Falcons, and the Atlanta Falcons looked good. Defensively, offensively, they looked good as well. Tyler Algier had 75 yards rushing and 2 scores. Bijan Robinson had 56 yards rushing as well as 27 yards receiving plus a score. So Bijan looked good. Like the entire RB group looked good. Desmond Ridder didn't look so good. He had 115 yards and a score, a pass to Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson made him look decent. Between Kyle Pitts and Drake London, there was a time when Kyle Pitts and Drake London had no receptions. And I know guys in fantasy are kind of pissed off right now, like, hey, what is going on? Why is it that these two guys that were first-round picks aren't getting love? It is what it is. Arthur Smith, he might be a coach that might get fired at some point this year if he does not learn how to start getting his investments involved. There's a jury out is out for Desmond Ridder. Is he good? Is he not good? Like, either way it goes, the Falcons could be in play for another QB if Desmond Ridder doesn't start to show major improvements. As far as the number one overall pick, Bryce Young, he didn't have a good game at all. 20 for 38. 146 yards. That means he's throwing these little dink and dunks. He's averaging 3.8 yards per completion. He had 1 touchdown. He had 2 interceptions. The 1 touchdown went to Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst had a good game. We're going to talk about waiver wire ads a little bit later on in the show. Miles Sanders, the big acquisition, 18 carries, 72 yards, had a decent game. Chuba Hubbard also had 9 carries for 60 yards. So that's another guy who also played well. The defense was lights out, led by Derek Brown, 9 tackles and a sack. Brian Burns also had 7 tackles and 1.5 sacks, 4 sacks total for the Panthers. I think the Panthers are going to have a really good defense all around, but specifically in fantasy, I'm starting any DST that's going against these rookie QBs, such as a Bryce Young with the Carolina Panthers. Now, we move on to the next game, and that's the Houston Texans versus the Baltimore Ravens. What did we learn about C.J. Stroud? We learned nothing. Man. He got sacked 5 times. He threw 44 times, completed 28, 242 yards, no score. Did he fumble this game? Yes, he fumbled, and he lost the fumble. So even though he didn't throw a interception, he did fumble. And rookie QBs tend to make mistakes. Young QBs tend to make mistakes. So he made a mistake there, but they were never in the game. But the defense tried to keep them in the game as long as possible. Nico Collins is starting to become that dude. He had 11 targets. He caught 6 for 80. So it seems like this could be a year that Nico Collins kind of breaks out a little bit, a mini breakout. So, yes, better QB play does mean better quarterback play better wide receiver play for guys like Nico Collins. Robert Woods also had 10 targets, but he only caught 6 for 57. So it seems like those two guys seem to be his most reliable targets. Guys like Tank Dell and Noah Brown and some of these other lesser guys didn't get no more than 4 targets. So the target share went to Nico Collins with 11 and then Robert Woods with 10. Those guys combined for nearly 50% target share. So you guys want to look at that. Based off of your fantasy, based off of your waiver wire ads, your dynasty teams, keep an eye on that. Lamar Jackson didn't look great at all. 169 yards passing, 1 interception, was sacked 4 times. He did run the ball 6 times for 38 yards. He didn't do anything. Practically, he did nothing. This is more so the run game. You know, J.K. Dobbins had a score before he tore his, was it Achilles or ACL? I mean, he's practically done for the year. And that's just J.K. Dobbins, a guy that has so much talent, so much promise, but he just kept on getting hurt over and over and over again. Justice Hill did have 2 goal line carries. He did have 2 scores. So Justice Hill and Gus Edwards now, along with Melvin Gordon being elevated, are going to be the running backs that step in and try to solidify this RB group. For the Ravens, Zay Flowers is as advertised, 9 receptions, 78 yards. Zay Flowers is him, man. He is amazing. And he seems to be that number 1 wide receiver. Shout out to Roquan Smith for 16 tackles. 8 of those were solo, 2 tackles for loss, quarterback hit, and 1 sack. Roquan Smith is as advertised. The guy is legit. 16 tackles. Patrick Queen, 11 tackles. Brandon Stevens, 12 tackles. I mean, 3 guys are over 11 tackles each. That just shows you how terrible the Texans are. Everything the Texans try to do I mean, Damian Pierce, right? He's supposed to be a really good running back this year, and this and that. He had 11 carries for 38 yards. Start every DST that Houston plays. That's just another team that I don't believe will score a lot. Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. The Bengals looked terrible. They look terrible, okay? Joe Burrow, 82 yards passing for the entire game. 31 pass attempts, 14 completions. He averaged 2.6 per completion. That is terrible. Is it that Joe Burrow was so bad? Is it that Joe Burrow is bad? Or is it that the Cleveland Browns defense is good? I don't know what kind of combination that is. I didn't too much see the game. I saw highlights, but I wish I would have saw the game to kind of see what is the problem with this Bengals offense. Joe Mixon wasn't no help either. 13 carries for 56 yards. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you couldn't find these guys. Matter of fact, T. Higgins had no stats. He had a goose egg all the way around. He was targeted 8 times. He caught 0 of that. So what is going on with the Bengals? This is a team that everybody's saying could be a Super Bowl contender. I know it's just 1 week, but at the same time, this is alarming. This is alarming. Is it that the Bengals offensive line is just so bad? Like, what is it? The Browns did have two sacks, but I can guarantee you that they were putting pressure on these guys. You saw Myles Garrett doing little basketball moves like this. I mean, he's just having fun. He's just toying around with this offensive line. When you pay these quarterbacks big money, you have to make sure that you're able to protect your asset. It's like having a car without car insurance. It's like having a home without home insurance. You got to have insurance on your quarterback, which means the offensive line. It just makes no sense for me. So how did the Browns do? Deshaun Watson didn't do great. 154 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. Nick Chubb was elite as always, 18 carries for 106 yards. Jerome Ford had 15 carries. He only had 36 yards. That's crazy. Deshaun Watson did run in touchdown, 5 carries for 45 yards in the score. So Deshaun Watson did look good. Elijah Moore tried to make some plays, but they got to get more going out of this team in this passing game. But I guess you didn't need much when you're beating the Bengals 24-3. So I guess they did their job. But if that was a game, if that was the only game that was on TV, I would have been upset because that game looked pretty boring. Week 1 was pretty boring, especially those first half of games, those first set of games. Baker Mayfield, he gets a win versus Minnesota, at Minnesota. I mean, that's amazing. Baker Mayfield, 173 yards, 2 scores. Obviously, it wasn't like an amazing game. It wasn't flashy, but at the end of the day, he was sacked 1 time. But Baker Mayfield also did not have an interception or fumble, so you got to give him credit. Tampa Bay played mistake-free football to where they did not turn over the ball. They didn't have nothing in the running game. 17 carries for 39 yards by Rachaad White. That's practically nothing. Mike Evans had a decent game, 6 receptions, 66 yards, and a score. Chris Godwin, 5 receptions, 51 yards, no score. But that's where the targets went. 10 targets for Mike Evans and 6 targets for Chris Godwin. And you guys have to remember, targets is key for wide receivers. The more targets you get, the more you can do. Now, Kirk Cousins didn't have a great game, but he necessarily didn't have a terrible game either. He threw for 344 yards, 2 scores, 1 INT. Alexander Madison, nowhere to be found, 11 carries for 34 yards. Justin Jefferson, 9 receptions, 150 yards, no score, but he had 12 targets. Alexander Madison actually played way better than I thought he was going to play. He had 6 targets. He caught 4, 61 yards, and a score. TJ Hockenson targeted 9 times. He caught 8 receptions for 35 yards. How did you catch 8 receptions for 35 yards? He must have been a check down. That's pretty terrible. I expect TJ Hockenson to have a better game next game, especially being that he's getting 9 targets. So, yes, these 3 guys between Justin Jefferson, Addison, and Hockenson, all 3 guys are going to get the ball. And then you sprinkle in some KJ Osborne, who also had 6 targets himself. Yes, I do expect this Minnesota Vikings offense to get better as the year goes on. That's that. That game really wasn't exciting. Another non-exciting game was the Tennessee Titans. Let me get on the Tennessee Titans for a second. I don't know what Mike Vrabel is doing. Mike Vrabel seems to be losing it here. I mean, this team has done well in previous years of winning games, going to the playoffs. This year, this is not how you want to start. You go for all field goals. You had a chance to go for it on fourth down and solidify yourself and try to get a touchdown. And if you don't, then you pin the Saints deeper into their own territory. But yet you go for a field goal to try to stop these guys and get the ball back and kick another field goal to win the game. You failed, and you failed miserably. Ryan Tannehill played a terrible game. He threw 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions, man. Derrick Henry ran 15 times for 63 yards. It wasn't great. But one stat that I want you guys to take note of is that Tajay Spears outsnapped Derrick Henry. Take it for what it's worth. Derrick Henry should have been on the field way more. He's the offense. He's the best player on this team. Treylon Burks was nowhere to be found. 2 receptions for 18 yards. DeAndre Hopkins was targeted 13 times. He caught 7 for 65, no score. Nick Westbrook Akina had 7 targets for 4 receptions and 58 yards. Derrick Henry did have 2 receptions for 56 yards. You want to get the ball in Derrick Henry's hands even more. Now you look at the Saints. The Saints did nothing special, right? But at the end of the day, they won the game. Derek Carr, he was able to shred this Titans defense a little bit. 305 yards passing. 1 score, 1 INT. Jamal Williams was non-existent, 18 carries for 45 yards. Chris Olave was magnificent, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 112 yards. You had Rashid Shaheed, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 89 yards, and a score. He's going to be a thing. We're going to talk about him later on the waiver wire portion of the show. So, yeah, that's that, man. Saints played solid defense. They limited these guys from scoring touchdowns and scored field goals. They were able to sack Ryan Tannehill 3 times. They intercepted him 3 other times, and then also was able to get a fumble recovery. Oh, no, they didn't get a fumble recovery. They recovered their own fumble. So, yeah, that's that, man. That's that. Titans didn't really do too much to solidify their team. They didn't do too much to make a case that they can be a really good team this season. It's going to take some time, new offense, new players, Hopkins. You got to figure out how to incorporate everybody and make everything work. The Jacksonville Jaguars defeat the Indianapolis Colts 31-21. There was a time when I felt like Jacksonville was going to lose this game, and these guys came back in the fourth quarter with 2 big fourth quarter touchdowns to solidify this game, to take the lead and kind of put it away. Anthony Richardson looked like a rookie, but he ran the ball well, 10 carries, 40 yards, and a score. And he also had 223 yards passing, a touchdown and an interception. I was shocked to see Michael Pittman get off like he did. He had 8 receptions for 97 yards and a score off of 11 targets. So Michael Pittman is really good, and he's really going to get the ball. I was just kind of afraid on how would Anthony Richardson, would he be able to get Pittman the ball? And the Jags defense is much improved, but they showed that they were vulnerable. Trevor Lawrence had a decent game, 241 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Travis Etienne, 18 carries for 77 yards and a score. He had a good game. Calvin Ridley came out guns blazing. This guy had 8 receptions, 101 yards and a score. If he didn't slow down, he would have had way more. I think he had like 92 yards in the first quarter. He was catching everything. He was looking good. He had 11 targets, but he kind of slowed down in the second half. Zay Jones and Evan Ingram both pitched in with 5 receptions, 49 yards and 55 yards respectively, and a score for Zay Jones. Christian Kirk was nowhere to be found, but I think that Christian Kirk is going to be fine. And also Travis Etienne ended up with 5 receptions. Tank Bigsby was able to get into the end zone. I was excited about that. I have tons of Tank Bigsby in my dynasty teams, but he did lose a fumble. So that's not good. That's not good at all. Overall, I would say that these guys played well. Jags played a pretty good game. 3 sacks for Josh Allen. That's a pretty good way to start the season. We're going to end up looking at who's leading the league in yards right now, who's leading the league in interceptions and things of that nature. It's something that is fun to do weekly, right? So yeah, man. Anthony Richardson was just what we thought he was going to be. He ran the ball well, and that was that. But shout out to the 49ers, man. This team is stacked, man, offensively, defensively. They were able to defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers 30-7. Brock Purdy had a solid game, 220 yards, 2 scores. Yes, he was sacked 3 times, but he kept his composure. He was able to find Brandon Ayuk 8 times. He caught 8 receptions off of 8 targets, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's that. I mean, that is solid. Debo pitched in with 5 for 55. Outside of that, nobody else really had an impact in the receiving game. But Brandon Ayuk was enough. They couldn't stop him. So you keep on going to it until you can finally stop it, right? Christian McCaffrey, man, 22 carries, 152 yards, including a 65-yard touchdown. Yeah, he played great, and he also added 3 receptions for 17 yards. Christian McCaffrey's him, man. He's that guy. On the flip side, Najee Harris gave you nothing. 6 carries for 31 yards. There's rumblings that Jaylen Warren might be taking over from Najee Harris. Kenny Pickett, I have not seen any growth, but, I mean, you can only go up, right? He had 232 yards passing, 1 score, and 2 INTs. The 1 touchdown did go to Pat Freiermuth, a 3-yard touchdown for his lone reception. Allen Robinson led the team in targets with 8 targets. He caught 5 passes for 64 yards. I do expect Allen Robinson to be more of a factor moving forward, him and Calvin Austin, because for the simple fact that Deontay Johnson is out. He's going to be out for several weeks. So, yeah. I mean, Allen Robinson could be a hot waiver wire target, and we're going to talk about that. Timeout Sports, what's good? Says, what's up, bro? Najee was supposed to. Yeah, Najee, man, I really don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with that team. He needs to get the ball more, but he didn't. It says Najee was supposed to be much better. Absolutely. Like, you just can't get 6 carries. Like, you got to command the ball. You have to command the ball. That's one of those things. You go to the sideline and say, hey, give me the ball. I'm Najee Harris, and he's that caliber kind of guy. He was the guy that I took in the 3rd round of my drafts, and man, right now it's not looking good for me. Yeah, but that Pittsburgh defense looked good. T.J. Watt 3 sacks. I mean, there's a few guys this week that got 3 sacks. So so it's good to see these defensive edge rushers, defensive tackles get love. I mean, that's something that typically, like, the media doesn't do. They don't get love. So Washington and the Arizona Cardinals. Man, I talked about this on my Washington pod, man. Sam Howell, I had like a mixed bag on him, but I did see growth. I did see him getting better with each and every minute of this game. He had 202 yards passing, 1 score, and 1 INT. He was sacked 6 times for 46 yards, so that hurts. Ouch. Brian Robinson, man, 19 carries, 59 yards. We need more out of Brian Robinson Jr., but he did have that reception, that lone touchdown for the team. Curtis Samuel, shout out to him, 5 receptions for about 54 yards. Logan Thomas, man, he was dropping passes. He was tipping the ball. He didn't look too great. Yeah, this offense wasn't impressive for the Commanders, but the defense was amazing. Cameron Crowe with 10 tackles. Montez Sweat with 2 big forced fumbles, 1.5 sacks. But shout out to the Arizona Cardinals. They played well. Joshua Dobbs, got to give him credit. Although he only had 132 yards passing, he literally tried all he could to help the Cardinals win this. And the Cardinals could have won this game. They could have won this game. If not for these 2 big fumbles by Montez Sweat, I could be coming on being pissed off at my team, even though I still am. But a win is a win. You take that. It was an ugly game, but also a good game in itself. Let's go ahead and move on to the Vegas Raiders versus the Broncos. 17-16, the Vegas Raiders win. Jimmy G balled out, 200 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Not only that, Josh Jacobs was nowhere to be found. 19 carries for 41 yards. Jacoby Myers, man, 10 targets, 9 receptions, 81 yards, 2 scores. Jacoby Myers looks good. He looks like he can be a thing. He seemed to be like the number 1 receiver, while Devontae Adams is the number 2 receiver. I think these 2 guys work well in a tandem. These 2 guys like to do some of the things that Jimmy G likes to do, which is these short, intermediate type stuff. Jimmy G doesn't have the arm to beat you down the field, but he has these dink and dunk type stuff. You're going to have guys like Hooper, Jacobs. I mean, he's going to utilize everybody and dink and dunk this thing all the way down. And he'll run when he needs to. He was able to get that big run Sunday, for that 8-yard run and that first down. Russell Wilson, he looked okay, 177 yards, 2 scores, 1 to Cortland Sutton and 1 to LaJordan Humphreys. Yeah, that's that, man. So wasn't a fun game, wasn't an exciting game. It was just one of those games, right? Broncos could have easily won the game. P. Ryan had a good game. 8 carries for 41 yards. Javonte Williams, so combined, They ran the ball well as a team. They just need more out of the offense, and then you need some kind of playmaking ability defensively. They had 0 sacks. They had 0 turnovers, 0 takeaways. They barely had a tackle for loss. So the Broncos got to be better defensively if they want to win. They're going to be coming in. They're going to be playing a Commanders offense. Commanders go to the Mile High City to play the Denver Broncos next week. I'm excited for that. It's going to be a much tougher defense. Russell Wilson was sacked 2 times. Now he gets to see the Commanders' defensive line, who's pissed off, angry. So that's going to be a really good game. I want to see how these 2 teams fare versus each other. Let's go ahead and go to this next game. I think this is the most fun game of the day. It was the Miami Dolphins versus the LA Chargers. I mean, it was points, and some more points. Tua Tagovailoa had 466 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. Mostert also had a score as well. Tyreek Hill, man, 11 catches, 215 yards receiving, and 2 scores off of 15 targets. Jalen Waddle was okay, 5 targets, 4 receptions, and 78 yards. That's actually pretty solid. It's more than okay. It's actually pretty solid. But yeah, I mean, you're just overshadowed by a guy like Tyreek Hill. Look out for a guy named Dorham Smite. He had 7 targets. That's big in this offense for 3 receptions for 44 yards. Just imagine if it's doubled. If he's getting 14 targets, you're looking at 6 receptions and 88 yards. So Dorham Smite could be something for this team. They loved him and they targeted him, and he did his thing. On the flip side, this game could have gone either way. Justin Herbert had 228 yards passing, 1 score. Eckler had 16 carries, 117 yards to score. Joshua Kelly, 16 carries, 91 yards and a score. And Justin Herbert also pitched in with 5 rushes for 18 yards and a score. That was the most exciting game. The game went back and forth. Keenan Allen came back. He looked healthy. He looked spry out there. 6 receptions, 76 yards. Austin Eckler, 4 receptions, 47 yards. Like with this offense, they're going to spread the ball. Darnell Parham did some pretty good things. Gerald Everett pitched in. Quentin Johnson even pitched in. So in this offense, you don't know who's going to be the high in terms of targets. Well, typically you'll think Keenan Allen, right? But outside of Keenan Allen, it can literally go either way. It could be Eckler, it can be Mike Williams, it can be Everett, Parham, Quentin Johnson. The weapons are there for Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert is going to have a season this year. So you guys want to go ahead and trade for him in your fantasy teams. You guys want to go ahead and draft him if you haven't had your fantasy draft. You guys want to go ahead and use him in daily fantasy. Justin Herbert is him. Let me make sure that there's no other game that I haven't covered. But I want to say that I've hit just about every single game. We got to talk about the Rams and the Seahawks. That was a game. I was thinking, like, you know what? Stafford, is bad. He's hurt. He's this, he's that. Stafford looked great. Stafford had 334 yards passing, and he was slinging that thing. Kyron Williams, he seems to be the lead back over Cam Akers. He had 15 carries for 52 yards and 2 scores. So it seems to be Kyron Williams and not Cam Akers. So that's definitely somebody we're going to talk about a little later. Tutu Atwell, 6 receptions, 119 yards. Puka Nacua, he had 15 targets for a rookie, 10 receptions, 119 yards. A lot of times, Puka looked like Cooper Kupp out there. He did his best Cooper Kupp imitation. I was thinking that a lot of these targets would go to Van Jefferson and Tyler Higbee. Both guys got 5 and 3 receptions, with Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua got 15 and 8 targets each. Rams defense, they played well enough to win this game. They did nothing so spectacular. It was just that Geno Smith just was not connecting with his team. He had 112 yards passing, 1 touchdown. Kenneth Walker had a decent game, 12 carries for 64 yards. You wanted to see more out of him. Charbonnet, you got nothing. DK Metcalf had that 1 touchdown, and then that was it. 3 for 47 and a score, and then he kind of disappeared. So Bobby Wagner, 19 big tackles. Jordan Brooks, 12 tackles. It's one of them things where Bobby Wagner is going after the Rams and, all that good stuff. So he was humming. The defense was humming for Seattle, but the offense was not. And, that's just not a good look. It's not a good look. So I got one more game to talk about, and that's the Dallas Cowboys versus the Giants. That game, I didn't watch it. I didn't care to watch it. It was a total domination by Dallas. Dallas had 40 points. Giants had 0. Dak Prescott didn't have a good game because he didn't have to have a good game. I mean, the Giants were just that bad. I mean, Dallas scored in all facets. CeeDee Lamb, 4 receptions for 77 yards. You're going to have those big games out of CeeDee Lamb and even Brandon Cooks, but this was more of a Tony Pollard type day. He had his 14 for 70 and 2. Micah Parsons had a good game. You know, Micah Parsons does what Micah Parsons does. So, yeah, like I said, the Cowboys scored in every single facet that you can think of. They had an interception for a touchdown. They were able to get after the quarterback. Dallas just looked good. Dallas just looked really good. Dallas had, 7 sacks? I mean, it was like everybody. I mean, it was crazy, man. It was bananas. So let's go ahead and look at the overall standings in the NFL before we get into our waiver wire portion of the show, which I would use more so as a rapid fire. Right now, Tua Tagovailoa leads the league in yards with 466, followed by Kirk Cousins, Stafford, Mac Jones. Shout out to Mac Jones. We didn't talk too much about that game. The Eagles won the game, but Mac Jones played really, really well with 316 yards passing. Derek Carr comes in at 5. When you go to rushing, Christian McCaffrey with 152 yards. Shout out to Breece Hall. He had 2 carries for 100 yards. He had an 83-yarder. He had a 20-yarder. Then he had another 20-yard reception. Breece Hall is him. Give me Breece Hall over Dalvin Cook if they're getting a 50-50 split. Eckler is next on that list, and Chubb, then Joshua Kelly. Look at Joshua Kelly being the 5th leading rusher in the NFL right now. I know these are just numbers for week 1, which could be random, which could change as the weeks go on. Leading tackles, you got Bobby Wagner with 19. You got Zaire Franklin with 18. Roquan Smith with 16. TJ Edwards with 14. And Javon Allen with 14 as well. In terms of sacks, you have TJ Watt, Josh Allen, and Drake Jackson, all with 3 sacks apiece. Quentin Jefferson and a ton of other guys with 2 sacks. Shout out to Tyreek Hill leading the league right now in receptions with 215. Justin Jefferson, 150. Brandon Ayuk with 129. Tutu Atwell and Puka Nuka. Both guys are 4 and 5 right now with 119 each. Jordan Whitehead was able to intercept Josh Allen 3 times. He leads the league in interceptions, followed by Jesse Bates of the Atlanta Falcons. Huge acquisition with 2 interceptions, and then the slew of other guys averaging 1 interception apiece. Now we have to get to the waiver wire because the waiver wire was hot, or the waiver wire is hot. It is going to be happening tonight, so you want to go ahead and put in your waiver wire ads. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. Obviously, if you lose Aaron Rodgers to Achilles, of course, you got Anthony Richardson with the knee injury. Obviously, Kyler Murray hasn't played and possibly might not play this year, right? So if you're looking for quarterback help, if you have any of those guys, you want to go ahead and grab Jordan Love. Jordan Love looks great, and he has a great favorable matchup coming up with the Atlanta Falcons. Brock Purdy, if he's available in your redraft leagues, you want to go ahead and snag him. He's playing the Rams, and the Rams could give up points because they're going to be out there passing. So that could be an interdivision game to where it could be a potential shootout between the two. Matthew Stafford, he's looked great. He's a guy that you want to go ahead and pick up. Sam Howell, he looks good. He's playing a Denver defense that didn't really even wow us this week in week 1, right? And also Sam Howell has the weapons. He's going to get better each and every single game. Mac Jones, if he's available, you want to go ahead and scoop him. I mean, he is one of the top leading passers this year so far in fantasy. Also, you're going to pick up a guy like Baker Mayfield if you're desperate, if you're playing in 2 quarterback leagues. Baker Mayfield is playing the Chicago Bears, and he did look good. I mean, Chicago Bears did look bad versus Jordan Love. So it's potential to where Baker Mayfield could have a 3-touchdown game. He could have a 300-yard passing game. Obviously, it's Baker Mayfield, so you might expect the turnovers, but he could have a very, very solid game versus the Bears. And then obviously, if you are in desperation mode, whether you're playing in Superflex leagues or deep leagues, Zach Wilson is an option. I'm sorry to say it. If you're looking for quarterbacks in 2 quarterback leagues, he's a guy that you can go ahead and grab in your 2 quarterback leagues. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins was hurt, so he's done. Achilles, he's done for the season. Jonathan Taylor, he's out for 4 weeks. Eckler is dealing with an ankle injury, so you really, really, really want to watch that. Aaron Jones, hamstring. Kenneth Gainwell, ribs. Jeff Wilson, of course, he's out on IR. Kendra Miller, he's out. He's in and out. Zach Moss is out. Evan Hall, Cordell Patterson, all these different guys are having to deal with injuries. So you want to watch if these guys are practicing, right? And then you'll kind of know who you want to pick up in off the waivers, even as the week goes on. Some guys will go unclaimed, and you can go ahead and start to snatch these guys up. It looks like Kenneth Gainwell is the number one running back for the Eagles in this small sample size. He was the guy that was getting the carries. He was the guy that was actually doing something. 11.4 points is better than 0 points. You want to go ahead and grab Kenneth Gainwell off of your waivers if he's available. I'm so sad that I dropped him in a redraft league and somebody quickly came in and snatched him up. That was a big mistake by me, but I will make it up by getting guys like Kyron Williams. He seems to be the guy. He's going to be the guy over Cam Akers as of right now. With J.K. Dobbins being out, everybody is disrespecting a guy by the name of Gus Edwards. Snag you some Gus Edwards. I think he's going to be the back that you want to have. Justice Hill had a few carries for two touchdowns and 9 yards. Can you really depend on just that? What if he didn't get those touchdowns? What does he look like? So Gus Edwards is the guy that you want to have. And if you're in a desperate league, Justice Hill could be something. But I'm not impressed with a few carries for 9 yards and 2 scores. I'm not impressed. Joshua Kelly. Even with Eckler being healthy for most of the game, he got 16 carries for 91 yards and a score. He could be something. And I guarantee you guys, if Eckler goes down, Joshua Kelly's workload goes up. So you want to go ahead and snag you some Joshua Kelly. We all were thinking Isaiah Spiller. Isaiah Spiller has not been it at all. Timeout Sports says the Eagles are dumb. Swift is better than Gainwell. Gainwell could miss Thursday's game, though. Yes, he could miss game. Look, Gainwell could miss Thursday, but if Gainwell plays on Thursday, I'm going Gainwell over Swift. The Eagles are showing me that they're not going to use Swift, so I'm not going to mess with my fantasy lineup starting Swift until the Eagles show me consistency in using a Swift. You trade for him, you're not using them, and this is crazy to me. And then Rashad Penny was inactive, so I don't even get what's going on with the backfield for the Eagles. They're confused on what they want to do. It could be a Swift week, and then this week Gainwell is possibly the odd man out. So you want to keep an eye on all these things. You want to keep an eye out on practice and things of that nature. Kendre Miller, a guy that you want to pick up. Yes, he didn't play. He was out, but Jamal Williams offered nothing. Why not take a shot on Kendre Miller, who's younger, more explosive? So he's going to be available on the waiver wire. Zach Moss, the closer he gets closer to returning, we know that Zach Moss is a better running back than Deion Jackson. So why not take that gamble? Also, Jeff Wilson, right? He's being stashed right now on IR. If you can get him for free, you get him for free. You stick him into your IR spot, and then you use him a little later. If you're playing Fab, you can possibly get Jeff Wilson for $1. Nobody's looking at Jeff Wilson right now. Obviously, with the wide receivers, with Cooper Kupp being out for 4 games on the minimum, Christian Watson dealing with hamstring injuries, Deontay Johnson getting hurt hamstring. He might be out multiple weeks. You have Jerry Jeudy. He's dealing with injuries. Jacoby Myers, concussion, but I think Jacoby Myers will be fine. DJ Chark, hamstring. Wandell Moore, knee. Devontae Parker, John Mechie. So all these different injuries. And then obviously with Kadarius Toney just having a terrible game, for those of you guys who believe in Kadarius Toney, you guys can go after Kadarius Toney if you want to. I'm not messing with Kadarius Toney. Now, Puka Nacua. He is the guy. He's the guy that you want to have. He looked amazing. 15 targets, 10 receptions for 19 yards. Him and his little brother, Tutu Atwell, literally his little brother. Tutu Atwell is a smaller receiver, but guess what? If Stafford is going to air the ball out like he did, these are two guys that you want to put in. I mean, to me, Puka Nacua is my number one waiver wire priority. Then, you can go after other guys. But Tutu Atwell, he's there. Zay Jones is cheap. You can grab him. Obviously, that offense, you're not going to know if it's going to be Christian Kirk, or if it's going to be Ridley or Zay Jones. But Zay Jones is a guy that you can grab and stash if you have. You might even not have to put in a waiver claim. You might go unclaimed, and you can get him the next morning for the free. Josh Reynolds, it was a guy that I told you guys to grab before the game, and he showed us why you should have done. I mean, 4 receptions, 80 yards. He's going to have a role in that Lions offense. Darnell Mooney, of course. Rashid Shaheed, man, he balled out 6 receptions, 89 yards, and a score. He's a guy that's going to be he's literally the number 2 receiver over Michael Thomas. He has a little bit of wiggle to him. He's young. Him and Olave is going to make a nice tandem in the league for years to come. So I'm glad that I have some Rashad Shaheed in my dynasty team stash. For the Patriots, we were wondering who's going to be the wide receiver. Is it going to be Juju Smith-Schuster? Is it going to be this guy, that guy? Kendrick Bourne was targeted 11 times. He caught 6 for 64 and 2 scores. That's the guy. He seems to be the guy, especially with Tyquan Thornton dealing with injuries and things of that nature. Get you some Kendrick Bourne. Rashee Rice might be the best receiver that this terrible Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver group might have. Rashee Rice, right? He's big. He's young. He has a chance to be explosive. He offers a different skill set than all the midgets that they have between Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore and Richie James. He offers a different skill set. Rashee Rice, and then also keep an eye out on Justin Ross as the season progresses. If you have space, if you're playing Dynasty, you want to go ahead and use some Justin Ross and just kind of sit on him and see what it gives you. Jaden Reed could be a thing this year. He was targeted 5 times, 2 receptions, 48 yards. Robert Woods got a lot of targets. Curtis Samuel, he's a guy that he's going to offer flex play certain weeks. Allen Robinson is a sneaky pickup. If you're playing in a league to where you're looking for wide receiver help, Allen Robinson is the perfect guy to grab, especially in redraft. In Dynasty, I doubt you see a Allen Robinson. I was able to sell Allen Robinson on a team that I'm rebuilding. I sold him for a 24 third. So that's good value being a guy like Allen Robinson who's old. He's 30 years old and a guy that I'm not going to keep. Now, when it comes to tight ends, these things are all over the place. You want to go ahead and try to get guys like Jake Ferguson. I believe he's going to get more and more targets as the season goes on. He did have 7. They necessarily didn't even need him, but he had 7 targets. Regardless, Hayden Hurst, man, he's cheap. He's solid. The rookie's best friend is always a tight end, so go ahead and grab your Hayden Hurst. Luke Musgrave seems to be legit, like I've been telling you guys. If you guys watch all of our Dynasty shows, Luke Musgrave looks legit. Had 3 receptions for 50 yards. He's going to be the guy going forward. Everybody was saying Kraft. No, Luke Musgrave was him. Okay, when you look at guys like Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave was as good, if not better. It's just that the injuries have derailed him. Luke Musgrave is the real deal. And if he's targeted, he's going to get better as the year goes on. Hunter Henry, we was thinking Gesicki. Hunter Henry's staking his claim that, hey, I'm still one of the better tight ends in the league. He's only 28 years old. So you need to look at him. Zach Ertz, he did have 10 targets. Remember, targets is king. Target is volume. The more chances you get, the more receptions and possibly the more yards you can get. Now, granted, Zach Ertz only had 21 receiving yards out of 6 receptions. But at the end of the day, he did have 10 targets. What if those targets start to become targets in the red zone? Then you're talking about touchdowns. So target Zach Ertz if he's out there. He's cheap. Logan Thomas, even though I don't like him anymore, he pissed me off on Sunday, but he did have 8 targets. He caught 4 for 43. That's solid. And if you're playing in tight end premium leagues, that's actually more points. That's double-digit points. I talked about Durham Smythe. He's going to be a guy that's going to be heavily targeted in that Miami offense. So you want to go ahead and snag him while you can. DSTs to play this week. Anybody that Bryce Young is playing, anybody that CJ Stroud is playing, and anybody that the Arizona Cardinals are playing. Those are guys that you want to roster and kind of keep it going. As far as kickers, pick up the Titans kickers. The Titans don't want to score touchdowns, right? So Nick Folk is always going to be available. He's going to be out there. You want to get guys like Zerline. They're going to struggle. The Jets are going to struggle now to score touchdowns, and they're going to be just in enough position to give Zerline 50-yard field goal chances. So Nick Folk, Zerline are 2 guys that I recommend. This is the show, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will catch you guys on that next episode. Be sure to share. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. All that good stuff. I will catch you guys on that next episode. I'm out. Peace.